How important is it? How impactful is it on our mental health and also on preventing dementia and memory loss?
So in Feel Better Fast and Memory Rescue, I talk about this one idea. If you want to keep your brain healthy or rescue it if it's headed to the dark place, you have to prevent or treat the 11 major risk factors. And I have a mnemonic I love called Bright Minds. And so B is for blood flow, and R is retirement and aging, and I is inflammation, and the S is sleep. Because what I've seen is people who get less than 7 hours of sleep at night have lower overall blood flow to their brain, which means more bad decisions. People who have sleep apnea, they snore loudly, they stop breathing at night, their brain actually looks like they have early Alzheimer's disease. It begins to kill the tissue in their parietal lobes, top back part of the brain, which is one of the first areas that dies in Alzheimer's disease. And then new research has shown that when you sleep, your brain cleans or washes itself. It's basically cleaning up the amyloid plaques that are building up in the brain. And so making it a priority is critical. And in 1900, on average, Americans got 9 hours of sleep at night. Now they got 6.5 hours of sleep at night. You can't go through that kind of radical change in such a short period of evolutionary history and it not have a negative impact on our well-being. Children who average 1 less hour of sleep at night have a higher incidence of suicide. So we need to be more thoughtful and make sleep a priority in our lives.
Okay, give me one action step to get more sleep. Everyone who's listening to us going, oh, that's great for you to say, but I'm working 2 jobs and I got 3 kids and I'm stressed out at night and I'm staring at my TV screen and the last thing I want to do is go to sleep.
So turn blue light blockers on every gadget that your eyes look at after dark. So, phones have them, computers have them, you can download simple apps for them. That way you're not going to be bombarded with the blue light that turns off melatonin. Also, don't eat 2 hours before you go to bed, because people who eat right before they go to bed have a higher incidence of heart attack and strokes because their blood pressure doesn't dip right before they go to sleep. So they're called non-dippers, and they have a higher incidence of heart attack and stroke. And why I love talking to a cardiothoracic surgeon? Many years ago, I realized, because SPECT is a blood flow study. It looks at blood flow and activity. And the number 1 brain imaging predictor of Alzheimer's disease is low blood flow to your brain. So whatever is good for your heart is good for your brain. And whatever is bad for your heart is bad for your brain. So taking care of your blood vessels is actually one of the most important things you can do for your brain.
No, that's very true. We have techniques to measure blood vessel flexibility in our clinic, and it's fascinating. There's a saying in longevity that you are only as young as your blood vessels are flexible, and that has to do with the brain as well. But we've found and published that certain substances, high polyphenol substances, like grapeseed extract, like coffee, like extra dark chocolate, and olive oil has polyphenols that absolutely make your blood vessels more flexible. And when we add this to people's diets, their blood vessels get flexible. And then we took them out of people's diets and we could actually prove that their blood vessels got stiff again. So yeah, you gotta have blood flow to your heart and you gotta have the same thing to your brain. You're absolutely right. What are people eating that's unhealthy for their brain? And give me one action step to stop that habit and start a better habit for their brain.
So I love this idea. I mean, you and I agree on the foods, right? Anything that's pro-inflammatory. So Tana and I wrote a book called The Brain Warrior's Way. And in it, we talk about the weapons of mass destruction, which are highly processed, pesticide sprayed, high glycemic, low fiber, food-like substances stored in plastic containers. With 70% of us overweight or obese, 50% of us are diabetic or pre-diabetic. This is the biggest brain drain in the history of the United States. I published 2 studies that show as your weight goes up, the actual physical size and function of your brain goes down, which should scare the fat off anyone. So the one little tiny habit is when you go to eat something, ask yourself, do I love something that loves me back? So I don't know how many of your listeners have been in bad relationships. I have been in bad relationships in the past where I loved people that didn't love me back or weren't good for me. And I'm not doing that anymore. You know, I have a wonderful woman that I adore, and I'm damn sure not doing it with food that I have total control over. So when you're looking at that brownie or the donut or the cupcake, it's like that is pro-inflammatory, it's addictive, it increases erratic brain cell firing. It doesn't love you back. So you might love it, but it doesn't love you back. The only things I eat are things that serve my health rather than steal from my health. So you got to get your mind right about this. It's not, oh, I don't miss the Rocky Road ice cream. I actually see it as a weapon of mass destruction. So you know you're getting well when you find, and we're all creatures of habit. You know, what are the 20 foods you typically eat? I mean, people, it's like 15 or 20 foods. That's it. You just have to it's not hard. Just find 15 that you love that love you back. And Tana has a great cookbook called The Brain Warrior's Way Cookbook. And last night she made me asparagus soup with chicken. And it was just phenomenal. There is no suffering in getting well.
Yeah, you know, I used to know Jack LaLanne before he passed on. And Jack LaLanne, one of his favorite expressions, which I think is going too far, but if it tastes good, spit it out.
Yeah, no, that's not right, because you can train your taste buds. I mean, I love everything that I eat. I mean, you know, my snack is a cup of frozen blueberries, and I love that. So talk about polyphenols, they're just loaded with it. And so you just have to find things you love that love you back.
As you know, I'm fascinated with the microbiome, both in our gut and the oral microbiome. Tell us, the research is evolving very, very rapidly about the gut-brain connection and even the microbiome connection. Thoughts on that? What have you learned that's changed your practice in the last few years with the Human Microbiome Project and the brain?
You know, we talked about whatever's good for your heart is good for your brain. Well, whatever is good for your microbiome is good for your brain as well. There's actually a direct connection between the brain and the gut through the vagal nerve. And when you keep the gut bugs healthy, you're happier. You're actually less anxious. You feel less stress. And it helps to modulate inflammation. And the I in Bright Minds is inflammation. And in that part of the book, I talk all about the microbiome and how critical it is. So you want to avoid things that hurt it. I mean, this isn't hard, right? So for the brain, do things that help it, avoid things that hurt it. For the microbiome, it's the same. Do things that help it, avoid things that hurt it. So don't take antibiotics unless you have to. You need to lessen the alcohol. Why did my wife, as a nurse, put alcohol on your skin before she gave you a shot? Because it's killing the bugs. And I'm just not a fan of murdering those gut bugs that detoxify your system, help you digest your food, make neurotransmitters, make vitamins, and so on. And then lots of fiber, because fiber actually becomes the prebiotic or the food for the gut bugs or the probiotics.
I hope you enjoyed this episode of the Dr. Gundry Podcast. Make sure to check out the next one here. If your partner tells you you're snoring, please take that seriously. That snoring is not normal.